Today, I can report to the American people
that you're an idiot?
We're in a better strategic position in the long-term competition with China than we were when I took office. You all recall, many experts believe or predicting it was inevitable that China's economy would surpass ours. According to many predictions, that would happen by the year 2030 or shortly thereafter. But we in this room said no. If we make the investments in ourselves, if we protect our workers and technologies, that will not happen. Now, according to the latest predictions, on China's current course, they will never surpass us, period. I met one-on-one with President Xi in consequential summits. He and I have always been direct and straightforward with each other. I made it clear we expect China and everyone to abide by the international rules. And so we stood up against unfair trade practices, taking action when China dumps subsidized goods, incredibly subsidized, on our markets to undercut our workers. We imposed target tariffs for critical sectors like cars, steel, and semiconductors, rather than across-the-board tariffs. We imposed historic export controls on investments, restrictions, to ensure that China cannot use the most advanced technology and sensitive data against us.
You know, he says all this dumb stuff and talks about how their economy's not going to get greater than ours and all that, but it's like, first off, you really have no control over that. China's its own country, and if a lot of other countries want to do trade with it, that's what's going to help their economy get crazy. And a lot of countries do a lot of trading with China. And Xi Jinping has a pretty good grasp on his country and the billion people that it holds. And, yeah, so there very well is a chance that economically it could overtake us. We also hold tons of debt. I don't know what China has for debt, but when I think of China, I think of them as just massive exporters, which means they're pulling in a lot of money because they're exporting. So that means they're selling stuff, so they're making money. And we have tons of debt because we're buying stuff, and we're also subsidizing wars and crap like in Ukraine, just wasting money on dumb stuff. So, to a certain extent, they very well could easily overcome or surpass us or whatever economically because their debt will be lower and their exports and all that will be far greater. Now, at the end of the day, okay, yeah, maybe that doesn't feel good to have to think about, but that's not the overall value of a country, you know what I mean? Like, okay, just because their economy might be a little bit better, we still have a way better military, we still have, you know, X, Y, and Z, so it's like, he's trying to brag about how, oh, they're not going to overcome our economy, but it's like, even if they do, it's not the end of the world, you know what I mean? And if you don't want it to overcome, you can't put all kinds of sanctions and stuff on them, you gotta look at home. And actually, don't worry about deficit all the time. Oh, we cut the deficit. Deficit means nothing. It means, oh, we spent less last month than we did this month. But we still spent money. We still added to the debt. But we just did a little bit less than we did last month. Who cares? You need to cut that debt down. You know? And maybe try to get more stuff going from internally. And to ship that out. That way then we can boost our GDP and everything. You know, there's plenty of oil here on the homelands. Either A, farm that for us to use. That way then we don't have to import oil from any other country. That would help out massively by significantly reducing energy costs and eliminating a lot of costs associated with buying energy. Or B, sell it. Now you're making money. You're boosting that GDP. You know, you can't worry about, oh, well, China's doing well, so we're going to do this to them and put all these sanctions and tariffs and stuff. Okay, and? Like, that's only going to affect China's exports to us. The rest of the world's just like, yeah, whatever, we don't do that. so okay, you think you're going to thwart their economy because it's just us? I'm sure we're the biggest buyer of their products and stuff, but that's not what I'm trying to say. I just think that your strategy and your vision is a little skewed and kind of stupid.
Critically, we enlisted our allies and partners to join us, building more convergence among our allies on a shared approach to China than ever existed, and showing that it's more effective to deal with China alongside of partners rather than going it alone. But even while we compete vigorously, we've managed our relationship with China responsibly, so it's never tipped over into conflict. We've created lines of communication between President Xi and myself, and between the leaders of our militaries, to avoid misunderstanding. We found ways to work with each other, to address climate change, to reduce the flow of fentanyl in the United States, which, by the way, overdose deaths are coming down across our nation. And in my administration, we've seized more fentanyl at our border in 2 years than the previous 5 years combined.
Yeah, you know why? Because we didn't have wide open borders then. So that crap wasn't just willy-nilly coming over. So there wasn't as much to worry about seizing. Your stupid ass comes in, opens the border right up, has no restrictions, just, yeah, whatever, let them come on in. And here comes the drugs. Here comes the criminals. There we go. Yep, just come on in. Like, you created a problem and you're bragging about how, a lot more was caught. Oh, we caught a lot more fentanyl in the last 2 years than in the 5 years prior to that combined. But, like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't go bragging about that. Maybe you should look into why that's the case. It's not because our ICE officers and all that were slacking in those other 5 years and all of a sudden they got so much better. It's because you have terrible border policies. So, yeah, there's a lot more of it coming in, so I'd hope it's a lot easier to bust. Stupid. But that's a bad thing. That means if there's that much getting busted, how much got by before? You know what I mean? Where in comparison, maybe there was less being caught before because there was a lot less coming in, which means the amount that wasn't caught is a lot less than the amount that isn't getting caught now. Like,
today, I can also report to the American people, we're the first president in decades who's not leaving a war in Afghanistan to his successor. But we've got bin Laden during the Obama-Biden administration. The primary objective of war had been accomplished. And I believe that going forward, the primary threat of al-Qaeda would no longer be emanating from Afghanistan, but from elsewhere. And so, we not need to station a sizable number of American forces in Afghanistan. So when I took office, I had a choice. Ultimately, I saw no reason to keep thousands of servicemen in Afghanistan. I think I have my schedule with me, and I keep on my, I don't here, I don't have, but I keep on the back of my card the actual number of dead and wounded that occurred in our longest war to remind myself. Keep spending hundreds of millions of dollars a day. We're no longer doing that. In my view, it was time to end the war and bring our troops home, and we did.
okay, so on one hand, that sentiment is good. Like, yeah, I mean, that's been a long-standing war. The war in Iraq started when I was, in 10th grade? So I'm like 15, now I'm mid-30s, and it's finally over. That is pretty crazy. Long time for nothing, for a lie. Oh, weapons of mass destruction. Oops, there wasn't any. Like, Bush basically just wanted to be a war president and made it up as he went along just so then he could get that insignia. But at the same time, he's over here trying to talk about, oh yeah, I pulled the troops out and ended the war in Iraq. Except for this. One, yeah, that was extremely botched. I mean, you absolutely flubbed that. You ended up getting 13 people killed. In the process of trying to rush everyone out in a poor extraction, you ended up leaving behind tons of weaponry, vehicles, and everything that now the Taliban have. So you might have gotten all our troops out, but you got them out in body bags, and you got them. You massively strengthened the Taliban. So yeah, good job, dickhead. Also, you're talking about, I have a list of all the dead servicemen and women that I keep on the back of my schedule to remind myself about blah blah blah. Yeah, you know what else everybody's always reminded of? How at the 13 service people's funeral that was caused directly by you, you kept rudely checking your watch like a little cockbag every single time somebody came out. You couldn't have any kind of respect towards them, like, oops, you're in those caskets because of me, and feel any kind of guilt or anything. Nope, it was just, is this almost over? I need my ice cream. I gotta go tell some stupid story about being a pedo with kids rubbing my legs. Like, that is not an achievement. That is a massive failure on your end that you absolutely screwed up. And, yeah, you shouldn't be trying to brag about it, you idiot.
I commend the courage of all those who served in Afghanistan. We grieve all 2,461 Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice in the longest war in American history. And I grieve those brave service members whose lives were lost during the withdrawal. We also thank those inside and outside of government who have done so much to help thousands of Afghan families resettle in the United States. Remember, critics said if we ended the war, it would damage our alliances and create threats to our homeland from foreign directed terrorism out of a safe haven in Afghanistan. Neither has occurred. Neither has occurred. And our alliance has stayed strong. We've used our over-the-horizon capabilities to strike in Afghanistan and elsewhere when we had to. For instance, eliminating Zawahiri, the leader of al-Qaeda, who helped orchestrate the September 11th attacks. And we did it without putting more American boots on the ground. And by ending the war, we've been able to focus our energy and resources on more urgent challenges. There is nothing, I can tell you from my conversations with both Xi and Putin, nothing our adversaries and competitors like Russia and China would have liked more than seeing us to continue to be tied down in Afghanistan for another decade. For all those reasons, ending the war was the right thing to do, and I believe history will reflect that. And from the moment I entered office, I also worked to free as many Americans as possible being held hostage, wrongfully detained overseas. We brought home more than 75 Americans by last count. In some cases, it took months, even years of effort, like the prisoner swap with Russia over the past summer. Feat of diplomacy involving many of you and involving multiple countries who joined complex negotiations at our request. Another example of the power of our alliances. We did not have these relationships, those women would likely still be in prison. And finally, I can report to the American people that we restored our leadership in a range of other generational priorities. When I took office, we were no longer part of the International Climate Agreement. We announced on day one that we would join the Paris Accord, rejoin. And we've led by example. We've conserved hundreds of millions of acres of land and water, more than any president in American history, making investments in clean energy and convincing other nations to join us.
Okay, first off, we pulled out of those accords because we were footing the bill pretty largely on all of that. And so, again, Trump was like, yeah, this is okay and all, we can be a part of it, but, you know, why should we be footing the bill for all these other countries to just get a free ride, basically? So we dipped out, so that way then, hey, you want this to happen? You pay. You put a little money into it. You know? Don't just make it all on us, that we gotta handle it all. Also, you're talking about land preservation and stuff. Where? I don't know of any new national parks or anything that have been made. What are you talking about? I feel like Teddy Roosevelt probably might have had the most. Didn't he start the national parks and all that? I mean, he was an outdoorsman. He liked all that stuff. Like, what are you talking about, dickhead? If anything, land's gotten worse. I mean, look at those two videos right there that you're basically looking at. The wildfires. That's land being ruined.
Thanks to our efforts, the world has reached the goal of investing $100 billion every year in public and private funds to reduce greenhouse emissions.
Oh yeah, that reminds me. He says $100 billion, and I was going to make a joke and say, what, like you give to Ukraine? That's more like every month, though, not every year. But yeah, that was another thing. He was talking about how the war in Afghanistan was costing $100 million a day or something like that. And it's like, oh, that was a problem, though. But, you know, giving away hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine, that's no big deal, right? That you can just freely do all willy-nilly. Oh, here we go, Ukraine. But funding... I mean, yeah, we shouldn't be funding anything in Afghanistan either, but I'm just saying, like, why is that an issue to you when, relatively speaking, it's, well, I don't know, kind of cheaper, I guess? Versus Ukraine, though, that's no problem. You want to toot that like it's something good. Hey, we've given Ukraine, $500 billion or whatever it's been. That's fine. But Afghanistan, it's costing this much a day. Ugh. Like what? You don't make any sense. If one's a problem, then they should both be, and if one's not a problem, then they should both not be. Which, at the end of the day, they should both be a problem. Shouldn't be giving money to Ukraine, and yeah, we shouldn't keep wasting money on maintaining having troops in Afghanistan. But it's just, the contradiction is just kind of stupid. Alright, so I'm just going to end this here. The thing's not fully over. I'm at 2305 out of 28. But he seems to be just kind of rambling on, sort of, now. Just talking about stuff that he's already talked about before. Revisiting how, we got the best economy. We lived the next administration with blah, 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 this and all. His stupid lies, talking about, making it out like the economy's so great and all this, even though it's not. Making it out like, our alliances are strengthened and our enemies are weaker and all this. No, the enemies are stronger because you've been so weak that they've been able to take advantage of that. I don't know what you're talking about. They're weakened. And then, as far as our alliances, I don't really know how strengthened they've gotten. And I also don't know if we've gained any new ones, like he says. I feel like everything's the same. What are you talking about? We've gotten new alliances. Okay, haven't heard anything about that. But yeah, now he's just talking about Israel and Hamas again. And so, anyways, yeah. Of course, this was horrible and full of lies and gaslighting and all this. But that's what he's going to try to do, like always. Try to rewrite his own history like he does every single time he talks. Make it out like he was so great and, I'm wonderful. And I don't know. All I think is I hope that history books and stuff don't lie. I feel like they will. I feel like history books will act like Biden was so great and they'll put him in a good light and they'll put Trump in a terrible light. But I hope they tell the truth and talk about how terrible of a president Biden has been. And it should be very obvious, too, based on how Trump won 2 non-consecutive terms. Like, that's going to tell you something. It wasn't even the Democrat that won. Sure, they forced Biden out, but Kamala couldn't win because nobody wants a worthless Democrat anymore. There was also a red wave. All the branches have a majority of Republican, and that's for a reason, because people are just sick of the nonsense of Democrats. So, you can lie as much as you want, I guess, in the history books, but if people really stop and think about it, they'll be like, wait, why did this guy win again if he was so terrible? Why didn't the Democrats win at all if they were so great? Why was there a red wave? What happened? Oh, because the country's racist? That doesn't make any sense. So anyways, yeah, I just wanted to take a look at this, see what it was all about. Of course, it was complete horse manure. What else do you expect from this administration? Especially this dickbag right here. But, yeah, I guess one thing I'll say positive for him is that, he didn't have too many flubs. He had a couple little missteps, but for the most part, it wasn't like his usual how he talks and can't ever make any coherent sentences and stuff. And B, he relatively stayed stable. He didn't get, like, his weird over-the-top rage. It started a little. There was a couple parts where it started to well up, but then he got it back under control. And he also, wasn't too sleepy and stuff. No, granted, this says, like, it's 2:46 Eastern, which would be his time if he's at the White House. So, it's not too late. His bedtime's 6. He might be getting drowsy. It's about 3. He's got 3 hours to go before he's going to go to bed. But, so I guess there's that. But otherwise, yeah, of course, this was a ridiculous, horrible, lie-filled, terrible speech, like always. And, yeah. So anyhow, thanks for checking this one out with me, and until next time, I said see ya.
What must be what? What must be what? What must be what?